The frosted door at 4:17. The first time I noticed 4:17, the copier jammed. Our office machine wheezes like an old animal, and when it sulks you have to pry it open and coax out a ribbon of warm paper with clean, tender hands. I freed the crumpled sheet and found a calendar print someone forgot to collect. On Tuesday, a block of time was shaded the color our company reserves for off-site collaboration. The room listed wasn't one in our building. It was a floor and a door, level 7, suite 713. I turned the paper over and the back had a faint ghost of text, the way toner sometimes whispers to itself. 4:17 p.m. recurring. The copier clock said 11:09, which felt like a preface. We were good once in the ordinary ways. Mara and I collected grocery store receipts like souvenirs and left them in a bowl that used to hold clementines. She always tucked one foot under my knee when we watched late movies, like both of us needed to be tethered to this side of sleep. She slept with her mouth barely open, a small, faithful furnace. I parked my palm on her ribs and felt the engine of her continue. On Sundays, we ironed pillowcases because flat cotton meant someone had planned for comfort. We had a balcony too small for 2 chairs, so we had 1 chair and took turns. It worked until it didn't. The first change was scent, lemon for smoke, then sound. Her phone learned a new alert, 2 chimes like a tiny doorbell. The name that pinged her screen used a compass emoji and a letter, N, like a place pretending it was a person. When I asked about the new tone, she said, London, and I wanted to be the kind of man who accepts time zones as passwords. I nodded and rearranged the spice rack until Cumin faced north and time lined up like obedient soldiers. Suite 713 belongs to a shared workspace down the street, the kind with river views and room names that overreach. Their doors are frosted so everyone can see everyone else not seeing each other. I walked there on a lunch hour and timed the elevator like a person who believes in schedules. The lobby smelled like eucalyptus and money that wants to be believed. I told the receptionist I was touring the space. She gave me a smile shaped like a paperclip and said, "Feel free." I felt free enough to end up at 713. Through the frost, a blur of motion looked like 2 people practicing being close. I checked my phone. 4:17 arrived and swept the second hand past itself. I didn't open her messages. I wasn't ready to live inside the nouns. I cooked instead because cooking is a way to make heat choose you. I sautéed onions until the room forgave me, salted water like it owed me, and handed Mara a taste on the spoon. She put the spoon in her mouth and bit it gently and said, "More salt," which felt like a sentence with too many uses. She leaned her hip into mine and told me a story about a client who needed to be convinced of what they already wanted. My hands remembered her waist. The kitchen light made a warm coin at the base of her throat and my mouth wanted to memorialize it. Later, in bed, she turned to face the wall and guided my hand across her stomach, and desire made a show of continuity while the rest of us rehearsed detachment. After, she sighed and said, "We should go somewhere with fewer doors," and fell asleep like it was easy. The next afternoon, I followed 4:17 without telling myself that's what I was doing. The hallway outside 713 held that expensive quiet that comes from thick carpet and good intentions. The glass showed shapes, not faces. A shoulder, a hand. The tilt of a head you only make when you're listened to and believed. Their shadows overlapped and separated. At 5:03, 2 shapes became 2 people. He stepped out first, a measured man in a slate jacket, hair disciplined into certainty. He adjusted his cuffs like he owned time. She followed with her blazer unbuttoned and her mouth soft in a way I hadn't seen in a month. She touched his sleeve and then her own hair, a choreography I recognized as yes. He put his palm on the small of her back the way people do when they know a map without reading it. I asked the ceiling to lower itself. It didn't. I went home and made a list because lists make grief obey. Lawyer, accounts, copies, passwords, breathing. My lawyer's office sits above a cobbler and smells like actual leather and the memory of rain. She asked what I wanted, outcome or scene. Outcome, I said, hoping I meant it. Then you need witnesses and boring facts, she said. No literature. Judges are allergic to metaphor. Move what you can, don't threaten. Document. She handed me a yellow pad that made me feel like a person who can write down a storm and get a different forecast. I chose witnesses who loved me in the right ways. Her brother Anton, who is careful with instruments and words. Our friend Zara, who knows when to hand you water and when to hand you a wall. I invited them for dinner under the pretext of celebrating Zora's promotion because parties are soundproofing. I cooked too much on purpose to make the apartment reliable with smell. Mara texted at 7:50 that she would be 15 minutes, which 4:17 translates to zero credibility. At 8:26 she came in flushed with weather that looked like indoor light, hugged everyone and kissed me with accuracy. And the way her thumb pressed into my palm felt like memory doing its best. After coffee, I placed a small object on the table like a noun you don't want to learn to pronounce. It was a key card, white with an embossed heron, the logo of the river workspace. Next to it I set a photograph, a printout of the jammed calendar page with 4:17 circled in yellow. Lost and found, I said, as if the carpet could forgive us. Anton kept his eyes on me like I was on stage and had chosen honesty as a trick. Zora breathed once long and rolled her glass by its foot, a sound like a small tide. We should talk alone, Mara said evenly. We will, I said. The door clicked behind them and the apartment changed shape. She sat and rested her hands on either side of the keycard like she was framing a portrait. Say it, she said, and added, present tense. I want to know what now looks like. I stood outside the frosted door, I said. I watched shadows that used to be mine. She closed her eyes, then opened them and held mine. It started with errands, she said, not as an excuse but as a map. Someone to talk to after a meeting that went sideways. Then I liked how it felt to be new to a person who didn't know the worst 3 months of me. She looked toward our bedroom like she could hear sheets remembering. I told myself I was keeping it small. I started nomming doors instead of rooms. I wanted to be cruel and couldn't find the right grammar. Is he married? I asked. She nodded once. Separating, a daughter, 9. I put my hands flat on the table so I couldn't use them for anything stupid. Do you love him? I asked because I needed a noun even if it made me bleed. She thought for a count of 5. I love the version of me who doesn't apologize before she laughs, she said. He offers that version a chair. And me? I asked in case there was a chair left. I loved us like architecture, she said softly. Strong, quiet, functional. I stopped looking up. We're going to separate, I told her. Though we did work a knife couldn't, she nodded. Something in her shoulders admitted what the rest of her had been trying to stage manage. Do you want me to go now? I want us to stop making 2 rooms out of one small apartment, I said. Pick a door. I'll pick the other. She packed in an hour, which is how long it takes when the departure started months ago. The suitcase looked like furniture becoming travel. At the threshold, she reached for my wrist with the old code, thumb press, release, and chose air instead. That omission felt like both mercy and a verdict. He wrote to me once, barely. It was an email with corporate letterhead that used the word respect and the phrase mutual understanding. He hoped we could be gentlemen. I forwarded it to my lawyer and to Zara, who sent back a single line. Block, breathe, boil pasta. I boiled water until the kitchen fogged and the windows decided to be honest. There's a special quiet after you've carried a box down a flight of stairs and returned to the room it used to claim. The walls discover their edges. The air tries on a different temperature. The first night alone, I slept on top of the covers like someone visiting his own life. At 4:17, out of habit or hostility, I woke. The apartment felt accurate in a way that made me want to be kind to furniture. I got up and ironed a pillowcase badly and didn't fix it. Days turned into arithmetic. I moved what my lawyer said to move. I took photos of the apartment to remind myself rooms change around you without warning. I bought basil and overwatered it, then learned restraint. I ran by the river until my ribs felt rinsed. I changed the Wi-Fi password to a sentence about bridges in motion because I wanted the internet to talk like a friend. I put our bowl of receipts in a closet and let it stop pretending to be history. Once, because some stories do not close until you let them, I went back to the workspace and stood outside 713. The glass had been replaced. The frosting looked freshly unscathed. At 4:17, a new pair of shadows drifted into the room, two people I'd never meet, rehearsing a kindness or a lie. I waited for the heartbreak, and instead felt a quiet I recognized as vacancy finding a tenant. I let the elevator bring me back to the lobby the way gravity makes decisions for you. The receptionist looked up and smiled the same paperclip smile. "Tour go well?" she asked. "I've decided to work from home," I said, and meant it differently than she heard. We slid into a kind of after that didn't require a public. Papers arrived and were signed. Anton helped me move the heavier emotions by lifting the dresser with the stubby sock drawer. Zora left a pot of soup by my door with a note. "Instructions: heat, eat, don't imagine anything." Mara texted on a Wednesday. "Thank you for not making me the worst thing I did." I wrote back, "Thank you for not asking me to stay while you left." She sent a photo of a tiny rented room with a window full of sky. I sent a picture of the basil recovering. We didn't flirt, we traded weather. Memory is stubborn and generous. Some nights I remember her face lit by the lamp at our first airbim, how the curtain wouldn't close and she laughed into my collarbone like the night had borrowed our skin. The remembered heat comes like a tide. I let it, then let it go. Other nights I dream I'm in a hallway of frosted doors. I open them one by one and find rooms filled with harmless furniture. A chair, a lamp, a bed made with flat pillowcases. No one's laughing on the other side. The relief wakes me. Spring made promises and the river kept a few. I walked the path where we used to talk about buying a second chair for the balcony and decided I liked taking turns. I started saying my name out loud when I locked the door, because sometimes a voice needs to hear the person who lives inside it. At 4:17, on purpose, I went to the piano bar at the hotel where we used to fake summer and ordered the cheapest drink they felt embarrassed to serve. A woman tuned the piano and played a song that used to pull my mouth like a tide. I listened and didn't become anyone else. I still notice 4:17. It's the minute the kettle finds its small scream, the minute my neighbor's kid skates down the hallway in socks and laughs at the door as if it's a finish line. It's the minute sun lands on the rosemary I finally bought because I was tired of pretending I didn't miss certain smells. Some afternoons, when the light crosses the countertop just right, the frosted square of it looks like a door scene from a hallway. I reach out and press my palm there, feeling the warm, ordinary glass. On the other side is only my kitchen. A cup, a spoon, steam from a pot that will need stirring but not rescuing. When I sleep now, the latch catches on the first try. The bed has learned my shape without apologizing for its memory. If I wake at 4:17, I drink water and watch the ceiling until the city forgives itself for another day. I think about the list on the yellow pad and how boring saved me. I think about the first time the copier jammed and how the machine needed a steady hand and patience and attention to heat. I imagine feeding the paper back in smooth, no wrinkles, edges square. Then I stop imagining and I turn on the light and the room accepts me, and I begin again with the only honest schedule I know. This breath, that step, what's next?